So we're learning the laws of Shabbos. Rabbi Shulchan Aruch. We're holding in page 126 in section 303. Even if he was carrying an article in such a manner while it was still there on Friday, he must remove it at a nightfall if he did not remember to remove it before nightfall, as stated in section 252. It is forbidden to carry article in one's clothing, even in a city that has an eruv, and thus there is no place in the entire city where it is forbidden to carry at that time. It says in 77, Badei Shulchan 115:44 states that the Alter Rebbe placed this law in parentheses because it is a matter concerning which he was in doubt and wished to revisit later. Similarly, there is no reason for stringency at all if an eruv was established for an entire city. Indeed, even some authorities who rule stringently regarding a courtyard with an eruv rule leniently regarding a city that has an eruv, that has a community boundary. Badei Shulchan state that today the custom is to be lenient if the entire city has an eruv, even though there are authorities who maintain that there is no concept of public domain whatsoever in the present era. It's a whole fascinating discussion about what is a public domain. So there's one opinion that says that there is no public domain in the present era. It says in 78, two opinions quoted to explain an eruv, an eruv cannot be constructed in a public domain. Therefore, before an eruv can be constructed around the entire city, it has to be ascertained that the city is not a public domain. There are two opinions regarding what constitutes a public domain. According to the more lenient opinion, a place is not deemed a public domain unless 600,000 people pass through it. So if you're living in some small town USA, no 600,000 people pass in Idaho, in some of those counties, right?
Yeah, but you ever been to Lakewood? In Lakewood, they got this highway that goes through the town, Route 9. It's not the turnpike, okay? It's a regular road, but it goes up and down the state of New Jersey.
No, but there's 600,000 cars passing through it.
I don't know, but they won't make an error be over it, across it.
They won't make an error.
No.
Right, because they maybe they think that there is 600,000.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I don't think there is, but okay.
According to the more lenient opinion, a place is not deemed a public domain unless 600,000 people pass through it. But this is a different discussion. It says what is considered a public domain.
Right.
So he said in order for it to be a public domain, you have to have 600,000 people. Therefore, there is no place that is considered a public domain in present era. And an eruv can be constructed around an entire city. The Alter Rebbe concludes that the prevailing custom follows this opinion, although he qualifies that statement saying that a God-fearing person should follow the more stringent view. The prevailing custom is used as a measure for the present ruling.
Right.
There is great controversy among the contemporary authorities as to whether an eruv may be constructed around major metropolis today. What?
Right. Metropolis.
Yeah, metropolises today. According to the more stringent view, an eruv may not be constructed around an area whose public thoroughfares measures 16 cubits.
That's why they don't do Eastern Parkway.
Since the public thoroughfares in today metropolises are at least 16 cubits wide, any Eruv around today's cities is certainly invalid according to this view. Furthermore, there are many opinions regarding how to count the 600,000 people that must pass through an area to have it qualify as a public domain. Therefore, today's large cities could be deemed public domains according to scriptural law, even in keeping with a more lenient view. The matter thus becomes problematic since an Eruv cannot be constructed in a public domain. For an overview of this issue, see the contemporary of Eruv.
So that's why they don't put the Arab up in Lakewood or on Eastern Parkway.
Because it's probably considered public domain.
It's wide. It's wider than 16 cubits. Whose public thoroughfares measure 16 cubits, so that's the issue.
So he writes, even though there are authorities who maintain that there is no concept of a public domain whatsoever in the present era, leniency should not be granted.
Right. That's what we just read.
One should be stringent and follow this latter opinion except in a time of need, at which time it is possible to rely on the first opinion. There are, however, other authorities who rule even more leniently, stating that it is even permitted to go out to a courtyard that lacks an Eruv, wearing any of the ornaments that were forbidden to be worn, lest they be carried in his hand. On this basis, there are authorities who show even greater leniency, permitting wearing such ornaments even when one goes out to a Carmelis, even though it is not surrounded by partitions, just like this is permitted in a courtyard without an Eruv. According to the view presently, women who go out wearing all types of ornaments should not be admonished, because there are authorities who maintain that there is no concept of a public domain in the present era at all. Even major thoroughfares are only considered a Carmelis. There are authorities who justify the woman's conduct from another perspective, explaining that the sages forbade ornaments only in their era, when ornaments were not that prevalent among the majority of the general populace, and would be worn only on Shabbos. Therefore, it was a novelty for women to wear ornaments, and they would display their ornaments to each other. In the present era, by contrast, ornaments are very prevalent among the majority of the general populace, and women go out wearing ornaments during the week as well as
Shabbos.
as well as on Shabbos. The ornaments are not such a novelty so as to prompt women to display the ornaments to their friends. This leniency applied with regard to those ornaments that were prohibited out of concern that one might remove them and display them. By contrast, it cannot be said that one may rely on this leniency with regard to those ornaments that were forbidden out of concern that A, they would fall off, B, they would be removed for immersion, or C, they might be removed because the person would be mocked and would therefore carry them by hand. Rather, these authorities rely on the words of the other authorities who rule leniently, whose position, as was explained previously. However, all authorities agree that one is forbidden to go out even to a Carmelis while carrying any of the objects which one is forbidden to carry according to scriptural law, because they are considered as a burden in the full sense. This applies even if one takes these objects out to a public domain in a manner that would not be forbidden according to scriptural law. He takes them in an unusual manner. Nevertheless, since these objects are burdens and not ornaments, complete license was granted to take them out in such a manner, even to a courtyard that lacks an eruv. Instead, doing so is considered similar to other actions classified as shavus, of a shavus, a compound rabbinic prohibition, in which instance license was granted to perform such actions only for the sake of the performance of a mitzvah, or because of a severe loss, as explained in section 301, as will be explained in section 307. Therefore, it would be appropriate to admonish women to go out wearing a signet ring, and to admonish men not to go out wearing rings that do not have a seal, because they are burdens for them in a complete sense. Nevertheless, we do not admonish women regarding this matter, since they will not need the admonishment. It is preferable that they transgress unknowingly rather than intentionally.
So therefore, somebody wearing a man wearing a wedding ring, you don't tell him about it.
It says about a woman.
A woman, but so the guys wearing the wedding, some guys.
There are authorities who offer justification for the men, explaining that since it is presently common for men to go out during the week wearing rings that do not have a seal, such rings have become like ornaments for them, and they are permitted to go out wearing these rings on Shabbos. According to the authorities who rule leniently regarding ornaments even for women, nevertheless, according to the authorities who rule stringently for women, men are also forbidden to go out wearing such a ring, which is considered as an ornament for both men and women, as explained in section 301. According to the leniency mentioned here, leniency can be derived for women regarding signet ring, since it is common for women in the present era to go out wearing signet ring during the week. Such rings have become like ornaments for them, and they are permitted to go out wearing them on Shabbos, according to the authorities who rule leniently. Nevertheless, women must be cautioned to go out only with pins inserted into their clothing that are necessary to fasten the openings of their garments, and not with any other types of pins, since they have no benefit from pins which do not close their garments. They will heed our words. All of the above applies with regard to cautioning and admonishing other women or men. Nevertheless, every person should be stringent with regard to his own conduct, following the second opinion explained above. When necessary, it says in number 90, it is considered muktzah and may not be moved even within one's home. 90 is when we would suffer a loss or inconvenience, then it will be allowed. However, he may rely on the first opinion explained above. When both the head of a pin, the white piece on its thick end, as well as its point, have been removed, it is not considered as a utensil at all, and hence it is forbidden to move it on Shabbos. This is really associated with our learning of the Gemara, whether it's considered utensil or not. So once you remove the pin, its tip and its ball on top, the head of a pin, it's not considered utensil, should move it on Shabbos. Women must be cautioned not to move such a pin to place it in their scarves, unless both the head and the point of the pin were removed on Friday, and the one designated the pin for that specific purpose. Here you see direct correlation of Shulchan Aruch takes it from the Gemara, and also takes the logic and the using the same terminology of whether it was designated before Shabbos. Usually on Shabbos you shouldn't move it because it's not a utensil anymore.
Right.
But if you find a use for it before Shabbos, then she's allowed to. So by designated through a deed, while it was still day, the headless and pointless pin becomes considered as utensil for this purpose. Similarly, if the point and the head of a needle were removed, and one designated to be placed in his scarf while it was still day, on Friday it is permitted to be placed in his scarf on Shabbos, and one may also go out wearing it. A portion of the text is not extant.
Yeah, because part of the author Rabbi's Shulchan Aruch was destroyed.
Right.
You're tired, so maybe you don't want to learn. You still want to learn the